This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by cinematographer Michael Wale, whose work includes Smallville, Peacemaker, and more recently, Alaska Daily. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hey, thank you very much. Nice to be here, Gordon.
I'd love to know, how did you get involved with Peacemaker?
Peacemaker, that was a phone call. I was in between jobs. And I think I have to give credit to the gaffer I worked with, Todd Lapp, who I just finished a show with, and he jumped onto Peacemaker. And as things happen, things change on a show. There are situations, and they were looking for someone to come in for an episode. So Todd recommended me, and a few other people on the show knew me. And so it was one of those situations where I was available and really happy to come on board. So it was much a product of circumstance and connections, as I think so many people find. It's somewhat unpredictable as to where you're going to end up.
So how did you jumped in like they had already started shooting, or did you jump in?
Yeah, they shot the pilot, and I think they're about they do it in blocks. They're probably 3 episodes into it, and the situation came up where they needed someone to come in for an episode, so that's why I came in.
Wow, okay. So how did you get on the same page as the rest of the team and make sure?
It's a pretty steep learning curve, because it's like catching a train that's already left the station. There's a lot of meetings and discussions. Fortunately, a lot of reference material, because by then they shot a few things, and there's a style being established, a technique, a look. It's being cast, the sets are being built. So it's really as much as sort of following the recipe and matching and keeping that continuity of look. And that's sort of something that happens quite a bit, whether you're doing an insert unit or reshoots, or continuing on an episode that's already got a look set to it. I was thinking, I guess you're looking for a story. I remember back when I was at Ryerson, one of the best sort of film school exercises we had was, I think it was called Missing Scenes, and you'd pick a film that you liked and then shoot a scene that might have been in that film. So whether it's a black and white film or color or whatever the style was, but it was a good exercise in terms of being aware of what a look is and a style and a tone, and then recreating that on a technical level and creatively. So it was a good exercise, which I find is sort of paid off time and time again, because that's so much what the work is creating new things, but also maintaining a look, and in some cases adapting the look and propelling that along. So there's a lot of interesting things to consider for that.
I'm going to interrupt this interview for 1 second. We want to thank PixelView, one of our sponsors. They're a streaming solution for filmmakers. PixelView lets you stream your work to remote clients for easy collaboration, and it works with both on-set teams and post-production teams. With built-in video chat, you can discuss and make changes in real time and stream directly from your editing software. Or you can use the hardware encoder to stream from DaVinci Resolve or the camera on set. See the promo code and the link in the video description below. How would you describe Peacemaker's look? Because you said it had a style already when you came in.
It's based on James Gunn's the feature films, the Suicide Squad. So John Cena is the character Peacemaker that carries forward into his own sort of spin-off series. So it's the tone of that movie, which just has a cartoon action, a little bit saucy, little sort of irreverent, fun, humored action. And with that, we know it was a look that I guess we want to propel that story, but we also it was I guess I'm struggling for a style, but it was fun. It was a show that we wanted to have fun with and have action and embrace the tone of the movie.
So when you get like a script for whatever show or movie or whatever you're working on, how do you like to break it down for yourself? Like, do you make notes on things, or is there particular things you look for in the scripts as you're going through?
Well, for sure. I guess the first thing is read the script and try not to think about the look or style, just what the story is. And certainly this happens with conversations with the director as well, because there's always going to be a conceived tone or style to it. And then what happens, a lot of it's collaboration. Look at references, and they're not just movies or televisions, but we'll look at artwork or commercials or paintings or locations or photos that sort of evoke the same sort of style. And we'll create a lookbook and a style guide. And, sort of eventually we sort of narrow down onto what the intended look will be. And then including that, the director, but also production design is such a big part of it. So it's that communication with director, DP, production designer, just getting everyone on board. So we have a common look which sets, I guess, a style or a blueprint moving forward into what the intention will be. And then as we're moving along, refining that into hopefully a distinct look, because I think successfully every show should have a palette or a style or a language that's unique to that show. And it just helps us guide as filmmakers to know how to approach a situation, because as you're moving from scene to scene or location to location, there's so many ways to cover or shoot something. But if you have that sort of framework as to how you're going to approach it, I think it just keeps that continuity of show and just enforces the style or look. And now some shows have very strong looks and some have generic looks. And I think hopefully it's always a choice. You're making decisions as to how you want to shoot something. But what I like is if there's a distinct style, and it's always nice to sort of follow that path as you move through a film. And I think style-wise, it's nice when it changes. I think as a DP, it's great if you're doing different projects, different looks. Like last night, I was helping out doing a little unit on a show called Dead Boy Detectives. And with that, we're shooting hawk anamorphics and just going into that anamorphic world in television and just seeing that framing and what the lenses do in the light and how that affects storytelling. I think these are also technical attributes of filmmaking that influence a look and a feeling. So I think if you make a distinct choice, if you're going to go for a clinical clean look, or you're going for a dreamy look, or you're going for a dark look or a bright look, or camera movement, is it solid? Is it reacting? Is it handheld? There's so many styles and looks, I think, all contribute to a feeling and ultimately contribute and support a story. As much as I love technology, the story is so important that you always want to support that story. What are we trying to tell? And the exciting part about all this is that there's so many different ways to do that. And I think it starts with your first question, whereas you get the script, you have these discussions, everything's on the table, and just, hey, what are we going to do? What's the approach? And then you sort of dig into how you're going to pursue that.
So how do you, because you talked about it's all about the story. So how do you like to use cinematography as a storytelling tool when you're approaching a project?
Well, I guess cinematography has it's subliminal sometimes in terms of how you're going to place a camera. Like if we're just talking camera work, the camera has a personality. Is it a reactive camera? Is it reacting to things happening, or is it very passive? Is it staying quiet and observing in the background, or is it right in there and engaged with the actors? Is it become almost like one of the actors? Are we handheld over shoulders and sort of moving around, exploring spaces and going off of dialogue and reacting to someone's statement and going back to reaction? Are we staying still and getting all that quietly? And then it comes up, that introduces ideas of pace, and not only the way that you're shooting something, but then how is it going to be cut? What's the tempo? How is it going to be put together? And that sort of, I think these are all discussions that really help inform. And just coming to mind, we mentioned Peacemaker and tempo. I think that's probably the first script I ever had that came from James Gunn that had a playlist. And it was really interesting because reading the script for the first time, you click on, you have these list of songs, which you knew that were going to be in the show, which then carried forward to when we're shooting, which was amazing because you have playback happening, play that music. So if you're doing a fight sequence or an action sequence, I think that having that music really, I guess it influenced and informed how you're going to move and how the camera is going to move, how fast things happen, actors move. And it's sort of, I think it was sort of almost back to the music video days where you play the song and that would sort of affect the look. I think that carried forward into Peacemaker as an example where I thought it was interesting to use sound while actually shooting and actually sound while reading the script, and then how that carried forward. And it was just made for a fun set. It was just, you're doing some sort of kung fu fight, and then the music comes on, and it's a very pleasant, interesting, and new way of doing things, which I thought was quite good.
So I have to ask then, are you a big hair metal fan?
Uh, no, but it's still a pleasure to work in that environment. So I really enjoyed that. But
Yeah, no, it's a great series, and it was all 80s. It was
yeah,
very saturated in that 80s sound, so it was very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
And so when I think about bigger and bigger productions, especially something with James Gunn, um, I don't want to say they can get unwieldy, but like there's so much happening, and you're responsible for so much on that. How do you stay on top of, a project like that and still make sure that you're, meeting your creative goals?
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I think almost any production you have to stay on top of it. Like there's at
mhm,
any point things can go sideways. The key to staying on top of all this is planning and communication. Might sound kind of boring, but the more you talk about things, the more you discuss, and the more if you can previs, if you can do an extra scout or a walkthrough or storyboarding, all this stuff works really well. Going back to my, I guess, past experience, people ask as a cinematographer, what sort of skill set did you bring? What did you learn prior to that really helped? And I went to film school. I went to Ryerson.
mhm.
Prior to that, studied fine art and drawing. Prior to that, and during that time, I worked as a house painter for College Pro painters, and I also worked as a busboy and a waiter at Spitty's Pancake House. And I found both those jobs really informed me the importance of preparation. Talked about keeping things under control. I think as a painter, 80% of the job is getting yourself prepared and organized. And as a waiter, busboy, it's time management and keeping people happy and every table's different, and there's orders coming in here and there, and people are leaving here and ordering this, and get your toast, get your pancakes, get the syrup, run around, make sure everyone's happy, fill up coffee. So I think there's that sort of multitasking,
Mhm.
planning, that situational awareness. I think that with the prep, I think all these are skills that carry forward into filmmaking, which then in turn, hopefully you're able to sort of keep track of things and organize. But so much of it is relying on people. And I think what brought me into the filmmaking, film and television world is just working with people. Prior to that, I was working by myself, doing a lot of still photography, and just volunteered on a student film, and this whole world opened up where it's like, wow, this is amazing. You're with a group of people, you're this camaraderie, you're the teamwork, the creative influences. Really enjoy that. So I think it's in terms of keeping on top of things, it's people skills, getting along with people, but also just keeping that communication, that planning, keeping that excitement going, keeping the involvement, the input. And I think as long as you have people that are engaged and creative and interested, and of course you have the skills and experience, working together really just helps overcome so many challenges that can happen outside, be it cast availability, locations, weather, dealing with COVID. There's so many variables that can throw a production off, that I think you have that strong foundation of people that work well together, have the experience and have the interest. You're well on your way to success.
I have to ask because you mentioned COVID, so I'm wondering, like all the cinematographers I've talked to, they're flying here, they're going there, they're out in the world, they're very social people.
Mhm.
So how did you handle COVID before they reopened the productions? Like, were you just going stir crazy, or were
Yeah,
you?
yeah, like everyone, it was.
Yeah.
I think I was doing a pilot called Debris, and we're
Hmm.
15-day pilot, and we're on I think day 10 or 11, almost towards the end. And that's when March 13th we got shut down. So like everyone else, it was time off. We couldn't work, and I guess the interesting side about it is that it was almost forced time off. And I think sometimes
Hmm.
between jobs, you feel a bit lost or a bit like you're being left out because everyone's working, or maybe where's the next job or what's going to happen. But when the industry shut down, no one was working. And it was that interesting time where, and it was a scary time, but looking back on it, it was unique in terms of um, no work, and there wasn't work to be had. So you were at home.
Yeah.
I don't know. My daughter went to, I went on a lot of TikTok videos. So baking bread, and in terms of what I did, it was sort of gardening and walking the dog and staying home. We made our our dining room table into a ping pong table. So we did a lot of that. But when the lockdown was happening, we're stuck at home. And, so we all get along. So that was it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but certainly a scary thing. And I'm glad to be on this side of it, and I hope continue to do well.
Now you live in British Columbia, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah.
So do you have a good view of the mountains then? Because at least that would be nice.
I have a bit of view of the mountains, and unfortunately, I'm right next to the woods too. Right near UBC, there's the endowment lands forest. So there's a bit of an escape there, and it's fairly quiet. So, and he's not here now, but a big dog that likes to jump around outside. So certainly lots of, even though I wasn't working, there's certainly lots of things to be doing.
Yeah.
Certainly living in a good place that fortunately enabled me to be able to get out and be alone and be, isolated, but still active.
So what would you say on because you've worked on shows like Smallville or, like I said, Peacemaker and so many others. What would you say is a scene in your career that was really challenging to pull off, but you're really happy and proud of the way it's come out?
I think I'd be very happy and I am happy and proud of a show called Debris. I think I mentioned that we're doing the pilot just prior to COVID. So that went to series, and had an episode which was episode 4 or 5 or something. But what happened was we were shooting in a cornfield, and this was a sort of a sci-fi series. And what happened? There were these investigators are dressed almost in spacesuits. So imagine spacemen in a cornfield, end of day, it's kind of raining, and they're investigating the situation. So kind of a bit of an X-Files type thing. So we're shooting the scene, and of course it's daylight dependent. We're getting towards the end of the day. These spacesuits had little lights in them. So in the cornfield, they arrive at outside of a tent at sort of a base camp, and they're doing their work. So we shot all that, but it's getting dark, and we ran out of time. I ended up not being able to shoot the close-ups. So we're going to carry them forward to the next day. Well, the next day we're at the studio in Burnaby, and a bright sunny day. So previously it was raining and overcast and dark. Now we're in a situation where it's hard sun. I guess the paint a better picture of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to match these close-ups of people in spacesuits out in this cornfield, which he'd shot at the end of the day in the rain. Now we're at bright, hard sun. And what we did, and what we're really proud of, was that we used one of those lunch tents, the black lunch tents, and removed one of the walls, and I put some hard ND. I think we had like an ND 21 or something, really to cut down that sun. Because I guess getting technical into it, but what this was all based on was exposure of these interior space helmet lights, which we didn't have control over. So they established earlier in that dark, rainy cornfield. Now we're in the bright sun. So we recreated the cornfield, a little bit of background, had these spacemen inside a black tent with the ND, creating this dark environment that I think when you look side by side, and maybe I can forward you a picture, and I'm sorry if this is getting kind of complicated, but what happened was we were able to shoot these close-ups against sky with the ND, with the light all working properly in the helmets, everything balanced exposure-wise, and really happy with the way that turned out. It sounds like I'm talking a lot about a spaceman in the helmet, but at the end of the day, I was technically very happy that we were able to match a rainy end-of-day spacesuit scene in the parking lot of the studio, bright, hard sun, but using lunch tent, NDs, a bit of corn, a bit of sky, bit of wet down, and I think it all came together really well. And I guess that's going back to what I was saying earlier, those missing scene exercises we did in film school, try to match an existing look and trying to understand exposure, quality of light. And when you're locked into something like that, I said the interior space helmet, your ambience has to match. And it's better. And I think the big part of it, I guess the takeaway is control. And I think as DPs, we're looking for a opportunity, always trying to control our environment, because big problem is, I'm sure all over the world, is you're shooting outside and it's sunny and it's cloudy and sunny and rainy and all these things. So as much as we can get control over our environment, whether it's on the stage or outside in location, and understand how to control that environment, I think those are very useful and helpful tools to have.
Well, and I think that's why everyone's so excited about the immersive virtual production units.
The virtual I did a volume workshop last weekend.
Oh yeah.
In Vancouver, at CMPP, they have a large volume stage there.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting. And I agree, there's certainly that opportunity for the virtual productions where you have the 7-hour sunset or 7-day sunsets.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep going and going and going. So it certainly opens up some really interesting possibilities and creative ways of again, shooting and telling a story with control. So
yeah. Now I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Visual guilty pleasures, like I mentioned earlier, the TikTok recipes. So I've been watching some TikToks. I guess that's been my guilty pleasure that I'll admit right now. But in terms of films, I know a film that I watched many times. I get a lot of pleasure off, and maybe it's from as a kid watching it. Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh yeah,
I enjoy that. I enjoy the music and the performances, and that still sort of gets me excited. So I'll say that's a pleasure, and I don't feel guilty about it.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's I hope I haven't spoken too much or rambled on too long. But,
no, it was perfect.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I wish everyone out there success and health and happiness. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or of course, on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.